Vint is the first fully transparent wine investment platform, genuinely accessible to everyone. For less than $100, you can own SEC-qualified shares of the best wines in the world. The Vint Wine Investment Podcast offers up-to-date information on the world of wine and investing, as well as current perspectives on our collections and the wine markets in general. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Vint Wine Investment Podcast. My name is Billy Galenko, and I'm the head of wine here at Vint. We have a great episode for you today with an exciting sellout, a Vint First, and a new segment that I'm going to be starting, something interesting I have drank recently. In that segment, I'll basically go over a wine or wines that I've recently had that I thought were really interesting, noteworthy, and worthy to share with you all. So let's jump right in. First, of course, the big news of the day is our Japanese whiskey collection sold out very quickly. This was really exciting. It was our largest collection by value at over $180,000 and was our third whiskey collection. And it shows the Vint community is almost as excited about whiskey as it is about wine. There's a couple cool figures that I wanted to share with you all. So there was a total of 206 investors in this collection, which is really exciting, with an average investment of $822. That's just an exciting news. So basically, you can kind of see that when you're investing in these Mint collections, you're really, part of a great group that's passionate about these assets, or really just interested in the opportunities that they potentially offer. So again, that was a really exciting collection with all 36 bottles from the 36 views of Mount Fuji Kurosawa producer. That collection of the 36 views of Mount Fuji was just so unique and definitely not easy to put together. So we're really looking forward to offering more collections like that, offering additional whiskey opportunities, as well as interesting collections of wine as well. Next, we want to touch on a Vint First. We had our first in-person wine event this week. Very exciting in Richmond, Virginia, the birthplace of Vint. We had a invite-only tasting. We're basically getting these events off the ground, doing some testing with smaller groups before rolling them out and offering them for more of our community. This was a tasting led by Robert Jones, a master sommelier in Virginia, a friend of Vint. It was very exciting. A bunch of the team got to go and taste good wines with close members of the community. Like I was kind of hinting there, this is the first of many. We have a number of small events and larger events planned for this year. If you would like to have an event or like to connect in your area, definitely drop us a line. We're happy to coordinate. We're still planning out the full schedule for the year, so definitely some flexibility there. But the goal of these events is really, one, education, giving everybody the opportunity to learn as much about wine as possible. I would say the second is adding that taste, that interaction component, the tasting component to our collections. We know that as a financial vehicle and as securities, you're not necessarily getting to taste the wines. So we want to give you guys the opportunity to be able to taste wines from the regions. Next is a segment that I'm really excited about. It basically is going to be a segment where I talk about something that's interesting that I have tasted recently. It can be wine or a spirit. It can be mainstream or an obscure varietal. It's basically like I spend a lot of my time, as you may expect, tasting different wines from around the world and exploring different expressions. And I want to share that with you. So what really kind of brought this to mind this week was a wine I had up in Santa Barbara, where I was up for this holiday weekend. I was at a vineyard called Rusak Vineyards, up in Santa Barbara and Ballard Canyon. I'm a big Ballard Canyon fan because of Ballard Canyon Syrah. They make amazing Syrahs. It's on the further eastern side of Santa Barbara, kind of away from where you would grow the cool Pinots and Chardonnays. As you go further east, it gets hotter. So that is why they're able to ripen red grapes like Syrah. But I don't want to talk about the Syrah today, although it is very good and I highly recommend you checking it out. What I want to talk about is their wines from their Santa Catalina Island vineyard, specifically the Chardonnay, but they grow Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Zinfandel on this island. Now, those of you that don't know, Catalina Island is part of this chain off the coast of Los Angeles and up to Santa Barbara called the Channel Islands. It is also the name of the current Mac OS operating system, and the island that is the default background when you start your computer is Catalina Island. So there you go. It is also very visible from the coast and LA and up and down even Orange County. And what's interesting about it is it's in the middle of this Pacific Ocean, which is really cool. Is that very much windswept, and it's been mostly a national or local park. It's been basically not allowed for commercial use for many years. The Rusek family, had some early holdings on the islands and planted a vineyard, which they were able to grandfather in and still use today. So first, I had a taste of the wines. They were very interesting. It was very interesting to compare them to Santa Barbara wines and wines made throughout the area in California here. But when I tasted the Chardonnay, I was kind of blown away, because typically in California, you get a riper expression of Chardonnay, more bright fruits. It goes more of that riper apple and pear, balance that with some oak, and it's really a balance of, acid, ripe fruit, and oak. But this expression was very interesting because it reminded me more of an old world expression, more of almost a Chablis, actually. The fruit was a little less ripe. The alcohol, it's a little over 12. The fruit was a little bit more like green apple, slightly unripe pear, almost with like a little bit of a citrus component. And there is this amazing minerality and like depth. It's almost some salinity from the sea breezes that are blowing on, but this really almost gravelly minerality that really reminded me of Chablis. And then there was a beautiful touch of oak on top. So when I found myself drinking this, my mind went more towards a Premier Cru or Grand Cru Chablis that sees a little bit of oak rather than a California Chardonnay. And I was able to taste this right next to a Chardonnay from Bien Nacido, which is a really well-known vineyard up in Santa Barbara, which is known for being cool. And even comparing the two, you could really see that the Catalina Island one was a little bit leaner, a little bit less ripe, and a little bit more had that minerality compared to a normal Santa Barbara Chardonnay, or especially a further north Chardonnay from California. So that was really exciting. And something that I wanted to have people think about is what goes into the final cost of a bottle of wine. Now, this wine is not cheap by any means. I believe it was $70. I'll have to check. But I bought a bottle and brought it home because it was just that unique and that special. But when you think about what goes into the cost of a bottle, there's a bunch of different elements. And something that people don't really think about that much is the cost of harvest and getting the fruit simply from the vineyards to the winery. Many wineries around the world buy fruit from growers who simply just grow fruit, and that's their main job. But estate vineyards and the ones that you're very familiar with, obviously grow the fruit and then use it in their own wines. And that's something that Rusek does, growing it on Catalina. But what's interesting is they're growing it very far from their base winery, and it's on an island that's only accessible by ferry and plane. So what they're telling me is, and I find this fascinating, is when the grapes are ripe, they're constantly monitoring them. They'll actually fly in pickers and pick it all in one day. So they'll fly pickers in from Santa Barbara, fly them over to Catalina, pick all the fruit, and then put the fruit in a plane, fly it back to Santa Barbara, and then vinify it there. To me, that is amazing. That's adds a lot of cost to the whole process. I mean, they're not picking with machines; they're picking by hand, and it's just really interesting to think about like that as a driving component. So when you see $70 price point, you're like, that's a little pricey. But when you think this wine started its life by literally being handpicked by pickers, flown to an island, and then the fruit flown back to the winery, you think about it as a little bit more of a deal. It's still pricey by some people's standards, but it's still, the value is really there. So it's interesting as we continue to explore wines from famous producers around the world, just going and thinking about something we want to always emphasize is that terroir, just understanding what goes into picking these wines, what goes into actually acquiring the fruit and bringing the fruit to the winery. Another example is our Rhone collection that's still alive right now. Some of those vineyards in Côte Rôtie are on such steep slopes that, the time and effort it takes to harvest those grapes simply alone goes into adding value to those wines and the ultimate cost. So it's just something to think about. I think we're going to continue to really dive in here on this type of, what goes into the cost of a bottle, what makes these investment grade wines so interesting and expensive. So I'm happy to share this little tidbit with you. I found it fascinating the more I learned about it, and we'll continue this segment in the weeks to come.
Hey everybody, this is Nick King, co-founder and CEO at Vint. Topic of the day is going to be events. It's something that we've talked about a lot, and we actually executed our first official event this week. So first I want to say a big shout out to Brady, who does investor relations for Vint. He put together an incredible event here in Richmond and really exceeded expectations both internally and with our guests. So the event, we had a wine bar that we rented out and had a master somm who operates the wine bar give an educational presentation around the Piemonte wines in the region of which is our next collection. So we tasted wines from the different vintages in that collection. We learned about the region. We learned about what made these different vintages different from each other. And it was all around a really, really good event. And it ties directly back to one thing that we think is really important, and that's education. The wine industry has typically been very, very exclusive, whether it's investing in it, whether it's trying to learn about it. There are these barriers to entry to do any of that. So making this education piece more accessible is something that we do with our one-pagers, blog posts, and now this was kind of a deep dive into education. So we are going to continue to do these educational events. And we put this event on for a reason. We think it can be a really interesting part of our customer acquisition strategy. And we're testing a lot of things, whether it's event size, who we have attending. We want to try and find a sweet spot, and the time will tell if events are scalable. But right now, I think doing things that don't scale, that's kind of our mantra. So yeah, it was all around great. We're going to track and see, hey, did the people who we invited invest more in future collections? Did they more actively participate in our referral program, which has been really strong? I'm really looking forward to gaining some of those insights from this event. So we intend to do more going forward, some larger, some smaller, in different cities. So I know DC is on the list. We've heard Denver, California, Cleveland, different areas where we could have smaller or medium to large events. So if you have a city where you think a Vint event would be worthwhile, we're really open to hearing anybody's thoughts, and please reach out to me or anybody on our team. So thank you.
For questions, comments, or feedback on the Vint Wine Investment Podcast, please email us at support@vint.co. To check out our current offerings and to sign up for the Vint platform, find us at www.vint.co. That's www.vint.co. Vint and VV Markets are offering securities pursuant to Regulation A. Our offering circular as amended can be found on the SEC website. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Investments such as those on the Vint platform are speculative and involve substantial risk to consider before investing. We may provide communication that may contain certain forward-looking statements that are subject to various risks and uncertainties. Information provided in any communications is not legal, business, or tax advice. All prospective investors should consult a legal, tax, or business advisor concerning the subject matter of any communications and any offering.